What's going on, Cougar fans? Peter Borkowski here on the Cougar Sports Network, bringing you this edition of Coaches Weekly. And once again, I'm joined by head coach of CUC men's volleyball, Coach Manos. Welcome back to the show. Excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Well, Coach, you guys played in one game since last time we talked, and unfortunately dropped that one 3-0 at Augustana College. And you mentioned going into it, Augustana is a good team. It was going to be a tough matchup, and I know you guys came away with the loss, but how do you think your team performed?
It's a good sign for what's ahead and just how we'll compare to the rest of our conference. So proud to see the good moments, able to capitalize that and really just continue to build on that. But for us, it was just a big learning moment. I think to play a high-level team on the road, go through the routine. You know, we're asking our freshmen and sophomores to do a lot as far as pulling weight, as far as earning more responsibility, and you know, for us, it's just a learning process.
Yeah, they got to grow up quickly.
Exactly.
Right.
So it being, again, our first true away game, I think it was just a positive in terms of the outlook, right? We talked a lot after the game. We had a lot of guys who, instead of just taking it as another game and moving on, you know, we're watching more film, we're doing extra reps in the gym, like they're going about it the right way.
Learning from it.
I'm encouraged by just their dynamic as a group of just recognizing what needs to be adjusted and moving forwards.
Right. And I know one of the stats from that game that didn't appear so great on paper was the hitting percentage was pretty low from your team, below that 100 mark. And that's something you kind of touched on that led to success in the Maranatha Baptist doubleheader on opening day.
Yeah.
So what's the key to getting that hitting percentage back up? Is there, what can you see your team doing that, you know, hey, this is going to be a good hitting day, and what maybe didn't go so well in that Augustana game that led it to be not such a great hitting day?
Well, part of it is we had played 2 games, so they had a full scout on us, and
it's true, right?
We didn't have the opportunity to watch too much of them other than last year's film. So they came ready to take, especially our freshmen, their first or their primary routes or their primary shots, and we had to learn a little bit maybe faster than we needed to as far as going to your secondary, whether it's a route, whether it's an attack, preference. So it was a learning curve mid-game to make those adjustments, but I think they're at least a little bit more familiar now of, okay, when we go into the next game, if they take away option A, how do we attack them by option B?
Okay.
So just practicing that, making sure that we're aware of that. We have a hitter hierarchy, we call it, in terms of just where you're focusing your attack rather than just going up and hitting hard. So again, it was a learning moment for us. The other team did a good job of recognizing what we did well, and for us it's okay.
Right.
How do we build off of that, knowing that we can still move our pieces and find success?
All right. And one player I want to focus on from that game was David Vales, who tied for the team lead in kills with 6. Him and Marcin Hoffman both had 6. And Vales, not only is he the only senior on this team, he's the only upperclassman on this team. He's been at CUC for a while now, and can you just talk about the importance of him, not only as an offensive presence, being able to go out, get those kills, do a little bit of everything, but just as a leadership presence. Again, as the only player who's not a sophomore or freshman, I'm sure that he is, kind of seen at least grade-wise as the leader of the locker room right now.
So David has been really consistent and steady for us, and I think that's been a big positive influence just in terms of his experience on the court and then off the court as well. He coaches at the high school and club level, so his knowledge and game IQ is extremely high for anyone at this level, right? So I think for us, he's just someone that is continuing to be a positive mentor for our younger players, where they're asking him, hey, if this isn't going well, how do I adjust? When we're going into different gyms or different dynamics, he's been really consistent. So we're favorable to have him in the program, be a consistent player, leader, and I know that as time goes on, he'll continue to lead our younger guys or just mentor them in a positive direction.
Well, now looking ahead to the next games, it's kind of a full weekend for you guys. You play Friday night and Saturday here at CUC, Wabash on Friday night, and then Fontbonne, who historically is a very good team, on Saturday. What are you wanting to see this weekend as kind of a bounce back almost from that Augustana loss? I know it would be over a week since you played Augustana, but what's going to signify, all right, like you said, that Augustana loss, what's going to show you that your team was indeed learning from that Augustana loss? Like you said, they were watching film, they're doing whatever they needed to do. What's going to be a sign of improvement this weekend against Wabash and Fontbonne?
So since last week, obviously our focus has just been improving our side of the net so far. So we want to see that consistency, we want to see that movement, that communication, the things internally just continue to move forwards. And I think from the flip side, now that we have more film, we have more scouting capabilities, being able to dive into that scout dynamic here over the next couple of days of we need to pick on their weaknesses. We need to make sure we limit their strengths where the last two matchups we've had, we just didn't have a lot of film or opportunity to do that unless it was mid-game. So having more preparation is going to be key now from now till really the end of the week as far as our shift and focus. So again, starting with our side of the net, I think we've done a good job with some little things. And then these next 2 days, being able to pick some really important aspects of the matchup and just run it.
Right. Well, CUC men's volleyball back at it this Friday night right here at CUC, a 7 p.m. game against Wabash, and then back at it again on Saturday when they welcome Fontbonne to Geisman Gymnasium. That is a 5 p.m. matchup. Coverage for both games can be found at our website, cucougars.com, and the live stream on our YouTube page, CUC Sports. Coach Manos, thanks again for joining me today, and good luck in a couple big games this upcoming weekend. Looking forward to talking to you again about them next week. But until then, this is Peter Borkowski sign off of the Cougar Sports Network and wanting to say, as always, go Cougars!
Welcome inside Geisman Gymnasium as we get set for some non-conference men's volleyball between the Wabash College Little Giants and your Concordia University Chicago Cougars. Peter Borkowski, Jonathan Shear joining you on the Cougar Sports Network. And Jonathan, let's look at these two teams before we get ready for tonight's action. Starting with the home squad, the Cougars a 2-1 record to start the year. Both of those wins came on the opening day doubleheader against Maranatha Baptist, but they dropped their most recent one, a 3-0 loss against Augustana this past Thursday. Last Thursday, I should say. It is Friday now, so over a week ago, that was the first loss of the season for the Cougars.
Yeah, 0-3 loss. I mean, you never want to drop 3 sets straight in the match and get swept. But, again, early on in the season, that's where the Cougars are at right now, just feeling it out. It's a very young team, this Cougars team, so that's where they're going to be most of the time in this early season. You got some bright spots from that last game against Augustana, mainly freshman Marcin Hoffman. He continued his early tear this season, led the team with 6 kills, along with David Vales, who also led the team with 6 kills. But yeah, some bright spots out of that match. You got Hoffman, you got Vales, you had Eli Mosher, led the team with assists once again. But you still have some bright spots going back to that opening weekend with the 2 games against Maranatha. This is a team that's shown some good flashes so far this season, even with a 3-set sweep this last Thursday.
Now, the big number to look for from that game was the Cougars' hitting percentage was at .052. You're not going to win many ball games when you're hitting below the 100 line. So something Coach Manos and the Cougars definitely cognizant of going up against a Wabash team who's coming into Geisman 1-1 on the season. And they recently got that 1 win on Friday, a week ago today, January 19th, a 3-0 win at another Northern Athletics Collegiate Conference school, the Rockford University of Regents. And Jonathan, really the star for that game for the Regents was their kill leader from that match, Jackson Leeper.
Yeah, Leeper, one of your middle blockers for this Wabash team. He's one of your big guys, and he's been very solid so far all year round for this Wabash team, at least throughout their first 2 games this season. Picked up the kill lead this last round. Also on the season is tied for their lead in blocks, had 2 of those this last game against Rockford. So he's someone that Wabash is going to be looking to anchor that front line right up alongside the net going up against this Cougars team tonight.
Well, CUC, they're trying to get back in the win column after last Thursday's loss at Augustana. Meanwhile, the Wabash squad, the visitors, they're trying to get above 500, start the season 2-1. We're going to see who's able to do it when we need to get down to courtside for action in just a little bit. But before all that, we have national anthem and starting lineups for you. But first, a very special message from President of Concordia University Chicago, Dr. Russell Dawn.
Hello, I'm Dr. Russell Dawn, President of Concordia University Chicago. Thank you for tuning in to today's Cougar Athletics broadcast. We take great pride in the strength of both our athletic and academic programs, which are rooted in our steadfast commitment to Jesus Christ. Dedicated to the liberal arts as a foundation of a high-quality college degree, we believe education should form individuals for service to their neighbors. This makes Concordia Chicago an exciting and fulfilling place to study, work, learn, and grow. Learn more today by visiting cuchicago.edu. Thank you, and go Cougars!
Lineups have been read, the national anthem has been played, and we're set to play some volleyball here in Geisman Gymnasium. Cougars taking on the Little Giants of Wabash. Peter Borkowski, Jonathan Shear with you on the Cougar Sports Network. Let's run through the starting lineups one more time for everybody watching at home. For the Little Giants, it's number 7, Boy Thang. Number 10, Shad Wilson. Number 15, Jackson Leaper. Number 16, Will Bikes. Number 24, Ricky Sessions. And number 26, Patrick Volk de Libero for the Little Giants is number 30, Christopher Board. Team managers for Wabash are Tom Ratkin and Evan Baker. The volunteer assistant coach is Marcela Dominguez, and the head coach of Wabash is Sean Baker. Meanwhile, for the Cougars, their starting 6 are David Vales, Timothy Johnson, Elijah Mosher, Van Gato, Jackson Stella, and Leon Gadzowski. The libero to start out is number 1, Deontay Garcia. Cougars wearing their gold tops with white shorts. They're attacking right to left to start the game. Deontay Garcia in the all-white fit. Meanwhile, the Little Giants in their red jerseys with gray siding and white lettering, gray shorts. Meanwhile, their libero wearing the white jersey with red shorts, gray striping all the way down, and red lettering. They're attacking left to right to start here in set number 1. And ready to get us going is number 16 for Wabash, Will Bikes, a junior setter out of Indianapolis, Indiana, staying in state to go to Wabash, which is located in Carpentersville. As Bikes' first serve of the game is received by Deontay Garcia, and we're off and running here in Geisman, and that is a block from Wabash. CUC keeps it alive. Here comes Stella. He gets the first kill of the game. Jackson Stella, the hard hit, and CUC gets a point out of it.
Yeah, this is a big front line Wabash has. I mean, you look out there at Patrick Wolk, that is a very tall dude. But for CUC, one of those advantages of having a freshman like Jackson Stella, they're tall as well. The front line is not going to be something that CUC is lacking in a lot compared to Wabash.
Thang's first attempt is put right back in his face. He hits it out of bounds, and it lands right in front of us. Our Assistant Sports Information Director, Sydney Ploskisla, her harkening back to her softball days, catches that one in the air and throws it back in play. CUC, meanwhile, they're up 2-0 as Stella gets set to serve. Stella, a standout freshman for this Cougars team, and as I say that, his serve sails out of play, but Jonathan, Stella is kind of really the story of the Cougars this year in a, focused fashion, which is that this is a very young team. They have one upperclassman in general, and that's the senior David Vales. Everyone else is a sophomore or more likely is a freshman. This is a small roster, and it's a very young roster, but that's something that hasn't really seemed to hinder them yet this season.
Absolutely not. Your two leaders in kills for this Cougars team are both freshmen, Marcin Hoffman and Jackson Stella. Both of them over 25 kills on the year solidly. This is a team where they're using that youth sort of to an advantage. They're not looking at it as something to hold them back, and it's not held them back whatsoever this year so far.
Meanwhile, Wabash gets a kill to tie it up 2-2. It tipped off a Cougars' fingertips before going out as Stang's hard serve is received. Here comes Gadzowski. He gets a kill. Leon Gadzowski, another freshman on this CUC's team, middle blocker out of Des Plaines, Illinois. And the Cougars, they retake the lead here 3-1 as Eli Mosher goes back to serve, gets the signs from his assistant coach Danny Coates and his head coach Greg Manos, his second year with the squad. As Bikes, he sets up, and finishing the play was Ricky Sessions. Deontay Garcia just couldn't get in front of that one enough, and we are back to a tied ball game, 3-3.
Yeah, Sessions coming into this game, second most kills on this Wabash team. This is a team, they're fairly evenly spread in terms of how many kills each player has.
David Vales just outside the line, another CUC errant hit, and that makes it 4-3 now in favor of the visitors. As going back to serve is number 10, the freshman, Shad Wilson, and his serve right into the net. And back and forth we go, 4-4 the game as David Vales, the lone senior, the lone upperclassman on this Cougars team, goes back to serve. And Jonathan, I talked to Coach Manos this past week just about the importance of Vales, not only his production as a player, which is good, but just his senior leadership and the need for the team for him to step up as the only senior, the only upperclassman on this squad. And Coach Manos had nothing but good things to say of Vales.
Yeah, I mean, on any team, you're going to want an anchor. On a team as young as this one, you mentioned it's a young team, 4 freshmen, 4 sophomores, and then a senior. He's naturally going to fall into that role, and it's important to have someone who can just take to that naturally. That's something that Vales has done this year.
He also takes naturally to getting some service aces. He gets one there, and CUC gives themselves a little cushion, 6-4. As Vales goes back to serve once again. This serve just over the net, but out of bounds. Point, Wabash. And we're back to a 1-point game. These two teams very evenly matched right now.
Yeah, and statistically, they've been fairly even so far. Both of their service percentages on the season, fairly even. One thing where CUC does have, by quite a large margin over Wabash, is the service error margin, where Wabash, with 2 games under their belt this season, came into this game with 30 service errors, 26 service errors, and then the Cougars come into this game only 30. So the Cougars averaging fewer errors from service than the Little Giants so far this year.
Vales, a little soft tapper, he gets the kill. And that's right there. That's a great display of Vales' IQ. It's not always about the power. You're always not going to fill the power meter to 100%. Sometimes all it takes is a little love tap, and we saw that right there. Vales able to put it over the front line. Godzowski, his serve too strong. And we're tied up once again, 7-7. Neither team able to find any kind of breathing room in a large lead. And coming in to serve, first time we've seen of the night, is number 9, Zev Wolverton. Wolverton right into the net. Comes in, serves up a service error, and CUC back in front, 8-7.
Yeah, it's been a very back and forth first set so far through this early stages, and a lot of that comes down to neither team is playing a particularly clean game so far. Both teams with their fair share of errors so far this match.
A little tap there, and it gets down. Number 15, the big man in the middle, Jackson Leaper, 6'6", 237, out of Carmel, Illinois, as he goes back to serve now.
That's another example of what you were talking about with the Vales earlier, that sort of precision, those touches just over the net that can be so productive.
And Mosher looked like he was going to set it and then sends it over, and Wabash picked it up all the way. CUC controls it defensively. Vales, another floater. Leapers right there. Bikes, and he's going to go for number 26, Patrick Volk, but he hits the pin. So CUC gets a point out of it. They're up once again by a single digit, 9-8.
Yeah, and that reception there from Wabash just fell a bit too far back on the court compared to where they would normally like it. Volk having to go for a big hit from a bit of a ways back.
Wolverton receives the serve, and an errant attack on the part of Will Bikes. Didn't even get it over the net. And that makes it 10-8 now.
That's one of those plays you do to keep the other team on their toes. You go out for the set, pass it over. Bikes just didn't have that peripheral vision to see that the Cougars were already blocking right where he was going up the set.
Speaking of block, there's Jackson Stella eating it up. He's getting hyped with the rest of his team. They have a 3-point lead now, which, Jonathan, in the game we've seen so far, a 3-point lead might as well be a 20-point lead the way we've been back and forth. And Van Gato wide left on that serve. Actually hit the foot of Ricky Sessions. A nice little touch there. We're talking soccer-wise. As Wabash gets a hold of it now. Going back to serve is Bikes. The junior setter. Serve almost goes over, hits the top of the net. Back down, and CUC back up by 3.
And that's the big difference. That's the reason this Cougars team has a 3-point gap right now is both teams are committing errors. The Cougars are just picking up a few more points in between theirs compared to Wabash. Wabash can't find the consistency they need to right now.
And another error, just like you mentioned, Jonathan Jackson Stella, a little too much sauce on that serve. And something that should be noted, and obviously there could be some injury behind the scenes stuff we don't know about, but we haven't seen any of Marcin Hoffman yet this game. CUC's kill leader on the young season has spent the entirety of this first set on the bench. Of course, Greg Manos, coach of the Cougars, knows that this is a small roster. He has to be careful with use and, just health, so he might be saving Hoffman for a later set, but CUC not being hindered at all by the absence of their number one kill getter. A big block up front, and they continue to lead this game now 13-10.
And honestly, this is a good sign for the Cougars so far. It's something they're going to be happy to see. You play without the player who has been by far your standout player on the season in Marcin Hoffman, and you're still playing fairly well. You have a lead in the first set. You're managing most signs of conflict. It's going pretty solidly and smoothly for this Cougars team so far, and that's without who's been your best player on the season. So that's a good sign for this Cougars team in these early stages, that there is some depth on what is already a very small roster.
Depth is going to be huge, especially when you're working with just 9 guys. As a good dig there by Eli Mosher. CUC in control. Mosher from the back row. Can't get it over the net. And Wabash pulls a point closer, 13-11. Back to serve, Shad Wilson. Wilson, a lot on that one, right to Van Gato. As Godzowski, he missed the attack, and the ball just kept rolling out of bounds. Some missed time offense there between Mosher and Godzowski. And Jonathan, that is probably something you are going to expect with a team with a lot of freshmen, is just that communication. It's going to grow as the season gets on. I mean, we're in game number 4 here, game day number 3, because 2 of those games came on the same day. And, in this early season, I don't think we should be surprised to see some of that missed time right now.
Yeah, it's a combination of miscommunication and some patience. You see a very nice set like that, your eyes are going to get big, your mouth's going to start watering, you're going to want the big hit.
Jump a little early.
Exactly, and then you miss.
Right.
So that leads to some errors like that. Those are the errors, though, you can very easily iron out as the season goes on. So that's a good sign for the Cougars.
Chemistry, of course, always comes with time, and when you're working with a team who nearly half the players are brand new to collegiate volleyball as a whole, obviously that chemistry is, hard to come by early, but should only get there as the season moves on. Meanwhile, back in this game, Patrick Volk goes back to serve. His team trailing by 2, 15-13. Mosher, he goes for a Tiki Johnson violation, however. Did not see the official call, but either way, it results in a Wabash point. As here comes Volk. Gato pops up to Mosher. Mosher goes for Johnson. Off the top of the hands and down. Timothy Johnson, or as his teammates and friends call him, Tiki Johnson, gets the kill.
And that's an awkward defensive play from Wabash right there. I mean, you got the touch on it on the send over, but just it's a slow fall. You can see it happening, but it's right in that no man's land where there's not really anyone there to get to it. It's a bit of a painful point to lose.
Bikes, he sets up perfectly Ricky Sessions, who buries it into the ground right at the feet of the Cougars defender. That's where you want to place those attacks. And Wabash back within 1 as Wolverton checks into the game. Wolverton has committed an error on the service line already. See what he can do on this one. It's a slow one, a high arcing one, but a good one. And somehow Wabash got a piece of it. It goes out of bounds. I think there's almost a magic trick. It looked like it just somehow teleported into another set of hands. whatever it is, Cougars up by 2 again, 17-15. Tiki Johnson at the service line. Service up and over. Bikes. He likes to go for Leaper. Leaper gets nothing out of it. Bikes now goes for Leaper again. This is blocked but out. CUC almost coming away with it defensively, just too hard on the block. And makes it 17-16 with Leaper back to serve. Vales receives it for CUC. Mosher tries to dunk it over Wabash, right on top of it. Good defense there. Here comes Stella. He's blocked by a combination of the net and some hands. And CUC finds themselves in a tied game now.
Yeah, you saw CUC able to get a bit more consistency than the Little Giants for a little bit, but it's still just been very back and forth. Neither team able to establish much of a big run here tonight.
Gato, his attack is blocked, and a violation on CUC, 2-touch rule called, and the Cougars find themselves playing from behind for the first time in a while, and that's going to cause Coach Manos to call his first time out of the set. So we're going to take a break here on the Cougar Sports Network, and when we come back, Wabash leading CUC 18-17. We'll be back in just a second on the Cougar Sports Network.
Hey there, we appreciate you tuning into today's game. To stay up to date on all things CUC men's volleyball, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CUC MVP. We'll see you on campus soon.
Back on the Cougar Sports Network, CUC, they're trailing the Wabash Little Giants 18-17 as Leaper gets set to serve, try and increase his team's lead. 7 points away they are from a set 1 victory. CUC trying to break a 3-set losing streak they are on, dating back to their last game against Augustana. And here comes Gato, a strong attack right inside the line. Great placement there from the sophomore, number 15.
And that's just a beautiful kill right there from Gato. Goes right through that line where it just sneaks in between every one of the Wabash players, right on the edge where you're going to have hesitation from Wabash and whether or not to go for it. Those are the kills that it's really tough to get better than that.
Here comes Stang. That hit a couple heads. Stang goes back at it. Cougars keep it up somehow. David Vales gets it over. Great defense there from Tiki Johnson and Deontay Garcia, but that proves too much for Garcia. Boy Thang, some great resilience sticking with the play. I think he got 3 or 4 touches on that possession alone. And because of it, CUC finds themselves in a 1-point hole again. Here comes Bikes. Deontay Garcia receives it in the back row. David Vales, a tough-placed ball falling right in front of the net. Not much Vales can do with the limited space. And the Little Giants, a 2-point lead now.
Yeah, it was tough placement, and the entirety of the Cougars' front line had dropped back, and none of them jumped forward quick enough to get up and get a hand on it.
And a service ace coming up here for Bikes. Deontay Garcia, bad reception. That's going to cause another timeout by Coach Greg Manos and CUC. And we're going to keep it here on the Cougar Sports Network this time to look at some of the stats. And, Jonathan, we've been mentioning the errors problem all night long. CUC, 5 attack errors, 5 service errors. Wabash, they have 7 and 4 of those respectively. Neither team hitting above 100 right now. And I think you put it best, in which it's a sloppy game, honestly, in this first set. And it's going to come down to which team can kind of play the best in between those mistakes.
Yeah. Right now, that's Wabash. They're on a little 3-0 scoring run right here. earlier you saw the Cougars do it. At the end of the day, it's who can manage those runs best and who can start to clean it up, not perfectly, but just a little bit, because even the ability to put together a 5-6 point run without any errors, that will play a huge difference. And just what has been such a close back and forth game so far, which the largest lead has been 3 points. Those 5 or 6 points could make a huge difference for either of these squads out there.
Volleyball is a game of runs, one of the purest, sports in terms of games of runs. And CUC, they are needing one now. They're 4 points away from a set loss, but they get 1 point back there on another error, a service error this time.
And sometimes that's what you need to get the momentum back, to just pick up a mistake from the other squad. And CUC gets that chance right here. And like we talked about, it's about finding consistency in between your mistakes. Here's CUC's time to try and find some consistency.
To do so, Coach Manos bringing in a new face to the game, Aiz Arif, another freshman on the CUC roster. First time we've seen him in action tonight. That floater is played by Mosher, and David Vales hits it over the net. It's blocked. Wabash is trying to claim CUC violation. They get no love from the officials, and Concordia back within one, 21-20, as Arif gets set to serve once more. Pikes, he goes the opposite way, and CUC unable to get there. Great touch by Boy Thang.
Yeah, and Thang, he's been the leader of this team this season so far for a reason. It comes down to talent, and then it comes down to awareness right there. Instead of setting up a 3-hit play, trying to create something slowly, sees the opportunity of the open court immediately to his right, and it's a quick tap over. That's an easy point for Wabash.
It was almost a redirect, basically, as he's not able to get this service ace in the line. CUC back within one, trailing 21-22 as Mosher goes back to serve.
This is right where Wabash would have liked that 3-0 scoring run they had to go a bit longer right towards the end of the set to put away the Cougars here, but it's those errors. They just keep letting the opposing team back into the match.
And the ball is still alive. Gazovsky trying to tip it over. Wabash recovered. Great recovery. And David Vales sends it out. Did it touch someone? It did.
And ironically, it's Patrick Volk with a slight touch and mistake at the end there to give the Cougars a point. Who's the reason that play went as long as it did. It was a really awkward return from Ricky Sessions, but Volk, a great diving play, almost on the floor right at the net to keep that one alive.
Well, you win some and you lose some. Volk did both on that, but Wabash, they win that volley. A strong hit from Volk.
This goes right off of Vale's head as soon as it gets over the net, and that's just a tough one to predict from the Cougars. It's hard to predict where a ball is going to bounce going off of a round shape like the top of a head.
And Deontay Garcia can't successfully play that one. And Wabash, we are at set point now. They lead 24-22. CUC, they need 2 straight points here to at least force extra volleyball.
And here's one of those mini runs from Wabash looking to get it to a 3-0 run here.
Mosher, Vales, and the Cougars still alive.
And there's another one of those hard hits that are just great to see. Vales wasting no time, just setting that ball in a straight line right towards the back edge of the court, right at the feet of Christopher Board. Picks up a point for the Cougs.
Wabash still at set point. They won't get it just yet. Mosher Johnson tips it over. There's Vales. Mosher sets up. Gazovsky, ball still alive. It's over the net. Gazovsky blocked and out. And that is set one for you. Wabash pulls away at the end. They take it 25-23, barely. And both teams, though, I think have some major adjustments to make here after what was overall a sloppy first set. But Wabash able to play just good enough to come away with the win. They take a 1-0 set lead into set number 2. We'll have that for you in just a couple minutes here. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Cougar Sports Network. back here on the Cougar Sports Network. A little less than 90 seconds before we get ready for set 2 between the Wabash Little Giants and the Concordia University Chicago Cougars. CUC fell in that first set, 25-23. Wabash up 1-0. Let's take a look at some of the stat leaders from today's match already. In terms of kills, the leaderboard is on Wabash except for the number 1 spot. That is David Vales with 4 on the day, the senior leader doing what he needs to do for the Cougars. In terms of the digs leader, Deontay Garcia, he's got 3. That leads all players. Eli Mosher leads all players in assists with 8, though Will Bikes right behind him with 7. Vales, Mosher, Gazowski each with 2 blocks. That's the most of any players. And Vales and his 7 points is the point leader. But, Jonathan, I think the stat that these coaches are really going to be looking at is just the errors and the hitting percentage. CUC 5 attack errors, 5 service errors. Wabash 7 and 6 in those 2 categories. And CUC, they're hitting the ball at 182. Wabash 107. But I guess the good thing for CUC is even though they lost that set, they were still hitting the volleyball better than Wabash, statistically at least. So, Jonathan, what else are they going to need to clean up here to be able to hopefully come away with a set 2 win, even up this game?
So as much as you want to talk about cleaning it up, it's more so about finding consistency. Mistakes are okay in this game, as we've seen. Wabash, they're making even more mistakes than the Cougars so far. So those mistakes aren't going to doom you. It's not being able to do enough between those mistakes. That's what caught the Cougars out at the end. Weren't able to get enough of those mini runs going as Wabash did right at the end. Quick 3-0 run to close out the set. But I think that's what the Cougars are going to look to, and they showed early on in this first set that they have the ability to do that. It's going to be doing that more often in this second set for CUC, but it's something that is very doable because just one of those, an extra 3-0 runnings in the Cougars' favor, entirely different set number 1. That's how close of a game of the first set it was, and that's how close of a game it's going to be all night long. If you're a fan of suspense, then this is going to be the match for you because neither of these teams look as if they're going to pull away tonight in this match.
Well, looking back at some history, CUC all-time leads the Wabash program 2 wins to nothing. And Wabash, they're now just 2 sets away from pulling off their first-time win against the Cougars in the shared history of these 2 squads. And the Cougars are going to entrust freshman Aiz Arif to get them going here in set number 2. Gets the signs from assistant coach Danny Coates. And interesting note here before we get started, we have a libero change for CUC. If you look on the bench, Van Gato now wearing the white jersey, designating him as the libero. Deontay Garcia has switched into a gold jersey. And meanwhile, Wabash, they get the first point after some tippy-tappy at the net.
And that's not the only change on this Cougars lineup to start off this set. You might call it a bit of putting in their ringer, but Marcin Hoffman is taking the court for the first time tonight here to kick off the second set.
Yeah, I guess you could say the thinking is, you're guaranteed at least 3 sets. Not that you want to go down 1 set, but if you can, use a set to kind of give him a little rest during that first set and then put him in the second set going onward, because I find it hard to believe that Marcin Hoffman is not going to play the rest of the match tonight now that he's in the game, just the way he's been hitting the ball for CUC. Here's Bikes' serve as his squad is up 2-0 early in set 2. Soft touch by Tiki Johnson goes nowhere. Here is Stang. He pushes it over. Eli Mosher handles it no problem. Here comes Hoffman and almost gets a kill. Great diving dig by Ricky Sessions. We are still going here. Hoffman, another attempt. He says, how about one harder? Buries it at the feet of Christopher Board.
And it's been a sloppy night so far from these teams, but that back and forth rally right there, it's going to be hard to find a rally that's more fun to watch than that one. Both teams making some incredible plays. Ricky Sessions laying straight out to save a play, and then Marcin Hoffman saying, welcome to the match, and laying down a hard kill.
And even that, but the adjustment as Hoffman gets a big block there. the adjustment from Hoffman in that volley. His first attack was soft. It didn't work, but that largely didn't work because Ricky Sessions played some fantastic defense. So when he got a second attempt at an attack, he just rocketed that one at Board's feet. That is really good in-game, in-the-fly adjustment from Hoffman. Wabash up 3-1. Boy Thang serve to the new libero Van Gato, and this attempt just sneaks inside the line. Good accuracy there from Jackson Stella as Hoffman, CUC's kill leader on the season coming in tonight, he goes back to serve.
Yeah, and we've gotten that glimpse of that CUC freshman frontline duo in this set here. Marcin Hoffman and Jackson Stella both making an impact here to kick off the set.
Strong hit and kill from Patrick Volk. Number 26, the 6'8" middle blocker out of Lafayette, California. Coming a long way to the Midwest. And he's proven to be a good pickup for Coach Sean Baker and his Little Giants program. And with the help of the net, a service ace for number 10, Chad Wilson. Everything coming up red. That is about as lucky a hit as you can get.
And, I mean, it's still very early on in the set, but a huge difference here is the errors. And as I say that, Wabash does commit a service error, but both teams keeping it a bit cleaner than they did in that first set so far.
Now Wabash, they've gotten their hitting percentage up to 152. CUC, however, has dropped to 143. As they're still trying to find some consistency. Bikes hits it back, and hitting it over the net was Lepper. Goes nowhere. Vales. His attack is tipped. Here comes Volk. It is put right back and out of bounds by CUC as they find themselves in a 6-3 hole now.
So this is a big development here for Wabash. They got a mini run to kick off the set, and they're actually been able to maintain that. They're showing more consistency than they did in that first set as well.
Mosher elects to go to Hoffman, hits the net and comes up and down. And CUC looks a little out of sorts as Coach Manos is trying to get his team together. Wabash currently up 7-3 now. Ball 50-50 at the net. Arif, gets it over. Here comes Leaper, and that touches in. I also think it tipped some hands. And Wabash on an absolute roll right now.
This is a very, very tough start to the set for the Cougars. It's not what they wanted. Biggest lead of the night so far for Wabash. They're playing a lot cleaner volleyball than they did in that first set.
Well, their block goes out. CUC looking for a clean kill, clean offense of any kind, which they really haven't found in the second set. Most of their points are coming off errors, blocks, whatever it may be. Coach Manos wanting to see this team put together a good offensive possession as here comes Mosher. Serve is over right to Thang in the back row. That ball tipped up by Mosher. Tiki Johnson gets it over Christopher Board. And here comes Thang, a floater. He sinks it in no man's land. Great setup there by Boy Thang. Came running up with some speed. It looked like he was winding up for a howitzer and just barely gives it a little tap.
We've already talked about it with Thang so far tonight, but again, that's the sort of skill that separates your good players from your great players, is that touch awareness, when to go all out and when to just place it right in the perfect spot. And that is something Thang has balanced perfectly so far this evening.
Whistle blown, violation on Wabash. So CUC gets a break there, again benefiting from Wabash's flaws as David Vales goes way back to get set for this serve. 9-5 the score. Vales up, serve is over. Thang, a bad touch, but Board makes it all right. Here comes Volk. He buries it in between three Cougars. And Wabash really pulling it together offensively this set, and that's going to force a timeout from Coach Manos and the Cougars. So we'll see what Coach Manos draws up on the board. CUC being outclassed by Wabash in this second set. They trail the Little Giants 10-5. We'll be back in just a second on the Cougar Sports Network. Back in Geisman Gymnasium, Peter Borkowski, Jonathan Shear here on the Cougar Sports Network. Do want to give one off-campus update. The Concordia Invitational Tournament being played up in Mequon, Wisconsin, and Cougars women's team, they've fallen in the first round to the host team, Concordia, Wisconsin, 61-44. That was a recent final. So CUC's women's team, they will be playing for, at best, third place tomorrow, Saturday afternoon. Not sure on the time of that game just yet. And the men's team, they're still waiting for their CIT debut this season. Later tonight, they start at 8 p.m., and we'll keep you updated throughout this match of what's going on at the always fun Concordia Invitational Tournament. Meanwhile, back here in Geisman, CUC able to get the first point of the timeout. Aiz Arif, his next serve is played by Wabash, and Bikes just served it up to nobody. It goes out of bounds. Some laugh from Bikes and his teammates over the error, and CUC one step closer.
Yeah, Bikes flying a bit too close to the sun right there. He saw the opportunity to get tricky, but just didn't realize how much court was left on his backside and sent it too far out of bounds.
And in the meantime, Shad Wilson coming in too hot, buries the ball right into the net. And CUC, don't look now, they're within two. Make it within one. An absolute lapse on Wabash's part. Everybody looking at each other, nobody playing the ball.
And that one right there, that's Zev Wolverton and Boy Thang. Both players thought the other was going to go for it, and communication, such a key part, such an important thing to have on a volleyball team. And it's moments like that, because just a single lapse and you lose a point very easily with a serve that wasn't a bad serve, but it's a fairly normal medium strength serve into the back corner, and Wabash gives CUC an easy point on a serve that should have been returned.
See what they can do here. Thang, he makes up for it with a kill. David Vales a little too high on the dig. And that makes the score 11-9 as going back to serve is Bikes.
Well, you do have CUC trailing by 2 now, and that's thanks to a 4-0 run they just had, which makes for the largest run either team has had tonight.
And Jackson Stella almost taking the head off of Ricky Sessions. Wabash able to return it. Here comes Stella again. He will not be denied. Jackson Stella, a couple of powerful shots, and he's rewarded with a kill. CUC back within one as Deontay Garcia checks in to serve.
And that one right there, that first attempt, Stella comes from behind, calls his known number, goes up there, gives it a big swat, and just runs it right back. I mean, that's something where Wabash just got overpowered from Stella, and it's a great run from the big man on the front line right there.
In the meantime, Deontay Garcia, his serve goes into the net. Boy Thing to serve now. And Van Gato had to go down in the splits for it. Didn't get a good angle. It sails out of bounds, and Wabash back up by 3.
Something we're getting in this set so far is most points aren't coming from errors. You're hearing a lot less of into the net, served out of bounds. You're hearing a bit more rallies, a bit more hit down onto the net. That's a good sign for both of these teams so far.
Marcin Hoffman, oh my goodness. Someone got a heat check on that one as he buried that into someone's chest on the Wabash side. I believe it was Christopher Board. It happened so quick. And by the way he's reacting, I believe it is board.
And that's just what adds Marcin Hoffman's versatility. He's a smart volleyball player, but when he brings out the cannon, man, that hit is hard to stop.
Van Gato puts it up, and then the Cougars aren't able to do anything. Eli Mosher trying to claim. Wabash came over the net. Gets no love from the officials, so Wabash able to go back up by 3, 14-11 our score. Shad Wilson back to serve. Wilson serve is up and over and down. Took a bounce off the rafters.
That was a very hard bounce off of the rafters too. Just kind of came almost back into the boundaries of the court, going off of the top of the wall towards the back of the gym. It's a really awkward ball to play off the roof there.
Service error as Wilson served that time, had too much on it. Makes it 15-12 as Jackson Stella back to serve. Wabash 10 points away from taking a commanding 2-0 lead in the match. CUC trying to even it up at 1 before things get too crazy as Jackson Stella's serve skims the top of the net. Does not phase number 24 Ricky Sessions in the back, and a kill from Wabash as the Cougars, that ball too hot to handle.
It's another kill from Volk on the right side. When he gets it where he wants it over there, he hits hard and he hits precise. It's something that's been tough for the Cougars to stop tonight.
Ball out of bounds. Cougars scrambling in desperation mode.
And this is just a bit of a tough run for the Cougars. They're not getting a big run put up on them, but for every 1 point they get, Wabash has been picking up 2, and it's leading them slowly falling behind here in this set.
David Vales doesn't want to fall behind too much. Carries that into the blocker's hands. They can't do much with it. As Eli Mosher back to serve. Here comes Mosher. Serve right into the net.
That serve actually low enough to go right off the back of the head of Arif, and there's one of those errors. CUC got a chance to start up a bit of a run, come away with just 1 point on the possession again, and Wabash another chance to extend their lead here.
Wolverton. Serve is out of bounds. And so now we're trading service errors.
That's a bit of a break for the Cougars right there, not having Wabash build away from them any more than they already had. Now, again, though, it's going to come down to the Cougars doing something with that error and coming away with more than just 1 point on a possession.
David Vales back to serve. Serve is played by Board. 50-50 ball. Cougars control it. Tiki Johnson sends it out.
And that's an awkward one right up at the net. Both teams' front lines getting up there, getting hands on it at the exact same time. And it was Wabash who just got that extra tip, sending it down to the Cougars and sending CUC into a bit of a frenzy trying to get it back up over the net.
And an errant reception by Vales. Tiki Johnson careening into the bleachers, all for naught as the ball lands further up the bleachers. And that's going to cause a timeout by Coach Manos. His team has really fallen apart here late in the second set. They trail Wabash 20-14. We're going to take a break here on the Cougar Sports Network, and when we come back, Wabash sees if they can close this set out, while CUC, they're just trying to get back in this one, prevent themselves from going down 2-0 in the match. See what happens when we're back in just a second on the Cougar Sports Network.
Cougar Nation, we love the support you give us on and off the court. We would love if you could help us with our athletic communication department with some donations. Hit the thank button. It's down in the lower left corner. This helps us continue to have the best live stream possible for some great Cougar men's volleyball moments. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the game.
Timeout over here in Geisman as the Cougars, they trail Wabash 20-14. And Jonathan, you could see Coach Manos getting animated with his team on the sideline. And that just seems to be what's missing from CUC right now, which is just that energy level that they're going to desperately need if they want to make up this 6-point deficit late in set 2. Marcin Hoffman knocks Wolverton on his back, but Wolverton able to get a dig out of it. Ball is out. No tip by CUC. And the Cougars, they get one back.
And that one right there, you had Marcin Hoffman pulling out the cannon once again, sending a hard hit across the court. That's something that Marcin Hoffman's hits do. Even if you're able to get a hand on them, they're going to eat you up, and you're not going to be able to recover immediately from them.
Sending that one straight out of bounds was Shad Wilson, and Wabash, they lose the first 2 volleys coming out of Greg Manos' second timeout. CUC benefiting from some errant attacks as Arif, a high serve played by Thang. Bike sends it over. There is Stella. Mosher finds Hoffman, and Hoffman just shanked that one. Didn't even get across the net. Got a bad piece of his hand.
And that's a tough rally to lose right there for CUC. You got a good serve. Wabash struggled to get it back over in a threatening fashion, have the opportunity to set up for a kill, and then just a slight mistake at the back end of the play to hand the ball back over to the Little Giants.
Vales receives the serve. Now he sends an attack over. Wabash is there, board. Here's Volk, strong hit, it's blocked up front. Hoffman and Stella. Even when Hoffman's struggling on offense, his defense is still there. Jackson Stella gets in on the block party, and see if that's a bit of a spark plug moment for the CUC team.
Yeah, that's something that hadn't been as loud for the Cougars in this set, and it comes up when they need to late in this set. That front line that was so good in the first set.
Way over everybody's head, off the hand of Patrick Volk. Too much mustard on that hit. And CUC back within 3, 21-18. They've been playing some great volleyball since that timeout. A 4-1 run has them right back in this second set that they desperately need to win. Thang pushes it. There's a good play by Gato. Marcin Hoffman sends a floater, and Volk got a piece of it. Now a strong hit. This ball is played by Gato. Volk pokes it over. Deontay Garcia is there. Hoffman, he ends it! Marcin Hoffman, the finisher for CUC, and it's 21-19.
And that one right there, that versatility and adjustments that Marcin Hoffman is able to make. He made another great play with the touch early on. Wabash able to save it, and then he just goes to the hard hit right at the end and just forces it down the Little Giants' throats, taking that point for CUC, and they've got on a bit of a run here, bringing it back to a 2-point gap.
Well, Jonathan, it's really been since that timeout, the last timeout that Coach Manos called, that CUC, they're now on a 5-1 run. Other than the energy levels, which are obviously much, much higher for the Cougars right now, what are some of the other differences that you've been noticing at least about what the CUC team is doing that has allowed them to go on that 5-1 run?
It almost feels like this CUC team is just playing more under control. They're not pressing, they're not rushing, they're not trying to force the plays. They're letting them develop. If they're in control, if they can set up the hit they want, they'll do that, and they're doing it cleanly. They're not making mistakes. If they have to play on the back foot, play defensively, and just try to keep the play alive, they're doing that, and they're not trying to do more than what they need to than just avoiding giving up a point. And that's what they need to do when playing from 6 points back, and it's working for the Cougars here.
(21-19) our score. Deontay Garcia hits the pin. See if this is a momentum killer for the Cougars as Wabash gets just their second point since that last Greg Manos timeout. Boy Thang goes back to serve. Thang taking his time. He knows how pivotal these last couple points are. Thang's serve is into the hands of Gato. Here comes Hoffman. Oh, my goodness. Open up the missile silo. Marcin Hoffman is here. Cougars back within 2.
And that is that set play that the Cougars would love to see. Wasn't a bad serve from Thang. Hard hit, straight up the middle. Cougars saw their opportunity, set it up, get that hit from Marcin Hoffman on the left side for a point.
His serve is played by Board. Big hit there by Volkan. It goes out, no touch. So CUC back within 1. Don't look now. This second set has become a game.
CUC forcing Wabash to start playing on their back foot here as they start to just fall behind in terms of runs.
And Marcin Hoffman, again, the service error rears its ugly head for CUC. He hits the pin, and that makes it 23-21. Wilson, his serve is played 50-50 ball and reaching over where the Little Giants can't reach into the cookie jar, and it's 23-22 now. But CUC quickly running out of leeway as Wabash still just 2 points away from claiming set 2. CUC, they need 3. Serve is over. Board is there. And oh my goodness, Ricky Sessions isn't going to let Hoffman have all the fun. A hard hit ball, and that brings up set point for Wabash.
And that right there, that's that combination of power and placement from Ricky Sessions that you're looking for. Right at the feet of Deontay Garcia. You can see it coming, but it is going to be real dang hard to return that ball.
Mosher goes for Vales, a floater. Ball is still up somehow. Thang puts it over and no one gets it. Boy Thang wafting it over the net.
That's the communication part of the game, and that's one that really hurts for the Cougars right there. You're on the offensive, you force Wabash into a tough position, and then just Boy Thang with not necessarily an incredibly dangerous play, but just one that the Cougars just didn't adapt to, and that's one that hurts. You have 4 players around that ball. All you need is someone to just knock it upwards, and you kind of miss on that, and that's one of those sort of fundamentals of volleyball that, I mean, whenever I've had playing with some of newer players, maybe it's beach volleyball at church, maybe you're playing pickup volleyball in the gym, some more just unexperienced players, they'll try and go for some big hits, they'll try and do something fancy, they'll miss that core fundamental of volleyball. Hit the ball up if it's in a tough spot. And right there, the Cougars just not processing quickly enough where that ball is coming from Thang, which is a light hit that you just need to hit it up and then make a play work.
So Boy Thang, a floater, just makes its way to the ground somehow, and that gives Wabash a commanding 2-0 lead in the match. We're going to take a quick break here on the Cougar Sports Network, and when we come back, set 3. Wabash looks to close this one out in commanding fashion, while the Cougars, it's do or die now. See what happens when we're back on the Cougar Sports Network in just a second.
Interested in finding out more about Concordia Chicago? Head to cuchicago.edu for information on our university. We appreciate you turning into today's game and hope to see you at CUC very soon.
Back here on the Cougar Sports Network as we get set for set 3 action between Wabash and Concordia University Chicago, the Little Giants of Wabash. They're currently on top of the Cougars 2-0. And Jonathan, we've seen some good from the Cougars. I mean, the late set 2 was some of the best volleyball we've seen them play all day long. And we've seen some mistakes by CUC as well. What's it going to take in this third set to be able to stay alive in the match and force a set 4?
What really hurt the Cougars in that last set was the performance early on in the set. They fell behind and they just weren't able to get back even with Wabash. That sort of last 10-point stretch for the Cougars was great. They played even with Wabash, got runs on them, gained on them, but they were just in too big of a hole from earlier on in the set to pull themselves out of it. That's what's huge for the Cougars here, is getting ahead early, not allowing Wabash to start off as strong as they have been this set.
Well, really quick while we get set for set 3, some of the leaders from the night. Patrick Volk has taken over the kill lead with 8. David Vales right behind him with 7. The digs leader, there's a tie between Deontay Garcia and Eli Mosher with 4 each. Eli Mosher leads all players in assists with 17. Will Bikes just one behind him with 16. Jackson Stella with 3 blocks. He's the block leader. And David Vales and his 10 points still the point leader. And Wabash picks up right where they left off. A lucky serve hit the net. And they get a point out of it. Makes it 1-0 here in set number 3. Bikes. Serve is over. There's Vales. Mosher goes for Stella. Big block all by himself. Number 10, Chad Wilson. And CUC finds themselves in a quick 2-0 hole.
And this isn't where the Cougars wanted to start out. A trend from their first 3 games of this season. All games have been sweeps. The Cougars won their first 2 and 3 set sweeps, lost their third game in a 3-set sweep. They're going to look to get out of that here. They're going to look to win at least one set, and maybe that'll start you on a run to get back into this game.
Ball hits into the net on Wabash. So CUC back up by 1. CUC down by 1 again, as Deontay Garcia goes back to serve. Here's Bikes. Volk, strong hit. Does it stay in? It does. The official call from the refs finally came. Long, suspenseful wait, but Wabash, they take a 3-1 lead now.
And Volk, he's been a lot more consistent from the right side so far tonight, but coming from the left there, again, one of those perfectly placed. Can't get much better than that. Ball's into that open space perfectly on the corner of the Cougars' side.
We're seeing Hoffman, another errant attack, and we've seen a couple of those from Hoffman tonight. Sometimes it looks like the ball just catches a bad part of his hand, and he sends it horizontally rather than forward. And because of that one, Wabash, they're up 4-1 now.
This is an important area for the Cougars here. You're down early. They're going to need to avoid getting mentally beat and avoid starting to press.
Stella taps it over. It's no good. Van Gano recollects the rebound. Hoffman gets that one over, but Wabash able to stop it. Good block up front by CUC to at least slow it down. Wabash in control. Here comes Volk. Vales in the back row. It hits the rafters up top. And now Hoffman pokes it over. We are still going on this volley. A long one here. And Deontay Garcia gets a hand on it. Not enough as the ball goes out.
Both teams playing some really good defense consistently on that one. For Wabash, it was Boy Thang playing that lockdown D on the back line. Every time the Cougars send the ball back there, it was Thang who just rallied it, secured it up, set it up for Wabash to try and make another play, and it was Wabash that outlasts the Cougs right there.
Boy Thang and a hard rocket. Here comes Hoffman, and it's shoved right back in the Cougars' face. And that is going to force, it looked like Greg Manos was ready to call a timeout. He is calling a timeout, just didn't let the official know. So CUC They're going to talk things over as they find themselves in a quick 6-1 hole. We'll take a break here on the Cougar Sports Network, and when we come back, Wabash, they look to close out the Cougars here in set 3, while CUC, they look to force set number 4. We'll be back on the Cougar Sports Network in just a second.
Fans, thanks for tuning in to today's game. For more information on the men's volleyball program, tune into CUCougars.com. We hope to see you at our next game.
Back here in Geisman as the Cougars, they get set to try and get a comeback here. They're down 6-1 early in set number 3, and Jonathan, they just look out of it. I think that's the best way to put it. This is a team who they're committing errors. There's some missed time stuff. I mean, I think that boy thing kill at the end of set 2 is kind of a good microcosm for it. Is that CUC, they just looked a little outmatched in terms of experience level, in terms of a little bit of everything tonight, and they're going to need to pull it together quick here in this third set.
And bit of an official timeout here going on, but what really happens with the start of this one is the Cougars needed to come out strong. They needed to come out at best get ahead early, at least hold even with Wabash. Don't let them pull away. And it's almost as if the Cougars came out of the break already playing on the back foot, already playing defensively, trying to just press and do a bit too much to try and get an early lead. Wabash stayed controlled, took advantage of that, and it's almost just the Cougars just aren't mentally there right now. They're panicking a little bit. They're trying to force themselves back into the game instead of developing, which is what worked for them at the end of that second set. Playing calm, letting plays develop as they develop, taking what's coming instead of trying to force what you want to happen to happen.
Not sure what the officials are talking about. I think it's actually to do with Boy Thang. He's on the sideline right now, getting taped up by the assistant coach for Wabash, Marcela Dominguez.
I'd have to guess if it's something
blood-related.
Maybe a scab peeled off or something, but either way, Thang's back in, and he'll be serving to kick off this set.
Say referees are very cautious of the cleanliness in terms of the blood on players. Don't want anyone else getting sick or anything because of it. So as long as it's covered up by a bandage, they are good to go. Boy Thang ready to serve here. His team is up 6-1. Serve is over. David Vela's a diving dig. Kicks it up. 50-50 ball, and dunking on it was Shad Wilson, one-handed. And Wabash, timeout. The blood timeout did not seem to faze them. They come out with a point. They're up 7-1.
And it was that second hit right there, the pass from Arif that just went too far, just over the net, and sets up another kill for Wabash.
Here comes Thang. Ball is up and over and down. Van Gato could not get up enough for it. Hits off the top of his hands, and it's now 8-1.
And this is the biggest run of the night for Wabash. 6 straight points, and it's the biggest run of the night for either team, being 6 straight points. For Wabash, it couldn't come at a better time when they're trying to put the dagger into the CUC team, and vice versa for the Cougars.
Gato plays this one successfully. Here comes Hoffman, blocked right back at him. Wabash doing everything well right now, getting kills, getting service aces, getting blocks. There is nothing they can't do right now as Boy Thang tries to continue this 7-0 scoring run. His squad is on. Serve is up and over. Hoffman goes down to a knee to grab it. Here comes Vales. Vales a floater into the net. CUC continues to struggle here.
And that's just kind of what we mentioned where the Cougars are mentally, is playing on their back foot, trying to force good things to happen, and it's not working well. It's some untimely, just hard hits over the net, maybe trying to force a little tap over the net. It's not working for CUC right now.
Here comes Jackson Stella. Cougars, the first time they've had an attack go over, and it doesn't last long. Boy Thing taking over here, gets a strong kill in the back row, and CUC finds themselves down by double digits. A very quiet Concordia team right now, as all the momentum is on the left side of your screen with the team in red. Here comes Stang. Serve is over. Hoffman receives in the back row. Here comes Stella, and the Cougars stop the bleeding. Jackson Stella, a big-time kill, opposite side of the court. And CUC able to get a point back. They trail by 9.
Yeah, just mentally, still a huge gap. It's 9 points, but just finally getting one of those big hits to go is huge.
And that's huge as well. A service ace off the hands of Marcin Hoffman. And the Cougars, they know if they're going to get back in this set, get back in this game, they're going to need a big streak here, as here comes Hoffman.
And that streak's going to come with not committing errors for the Cougars.
Ball is over and still going back after Van Gato got a piece of it. David Vales gets a kill. Vales right into the blocker's hands and down. And CUC, 3 straight points. They're not dead just yet. Marcin Hoffman back to serve once again. Serve is up and into the bottom of the net.
Just too much on top of that from Hoffman, and CUC not out of it. Like we mentioned, volleyball is a game of runs. We just saw Wabash go on a 10-0 run right there, but for the Cougars, those 3 points are going to hope to get a little more out of your runs than just that.
Tiki Johnson finds Hoffman in the back row, and again the net and some hands send it back to CUC as they now find themselves back in a 9-point hole.
And that front line from the Little Giants has just been rock solid this set so far, shutting down the hard hits from Hoffman.
Service line not as hot for Wabash, at least on that turn from Shad Wilson. Puts that one in the net. Makes it 13-5. Here comes Jackson Stella. CUC needs a decent run here as Stella, his serve comes all the way back. Aiza Reef has rode the net. They gave Wabash enough time to recover. Stella pops it up. Here's Arif off the top of some hands. Wabash back in control. Volk pokes it. Ball still loose. Everybody looking for it. David Vales sends it over and out. A desperation hit from Vales to avoid 4-touch rule. And just too much on it. Makes it 14-5.
And I think one of the big parts of this set is Wabash is playing remarkably consistent, solid volleyball. They're not making a lot of errors. They're playing it safe, and they're just keeping the ball alive when it's on their side of the court.
Violation on Tiki Johnson, 2-touch, and CUC just continues to plummet here in this third set. They needed to win it to prolong the match, and they've come out and done everything the opposite of what needed to happen. David Vales blocked right back in Van Gato's face. A discouraging hit for CUC, and that makes it 16-5.
I really think the big part of that 11-point gap has been the front line. That front line has been all Wabash this third set so far.
He's not able to get not able to get there soon enough. That set a little too front of him, and CUC finds themselves in a 12-point hole. Wabash, they need just 7 points, and they will go home a 3-0 victor over the Concordia University Chicago Cougars. Here comes Vales, a hard hit, and Wabash almost kept it alive, ricocheting off Christopher Board. They couldn't do it, and CUC, they break a 4-0 run for Wabash. They pull back within 11.
A big problem this set for CUC so far has been trying to force plays, but that one right there, Vale was just willing the Cougars to a point with that kill right there.
Sessions, that attack goes nowhere thanks to Marcin Hoffman. Now from the back row, Wabash pops it up. Here comes Volk, blocked by Gudzovskin, excuse me. And CUC back within 10.
And that's what's big. If the Cougars want any chance of coming back, of bridging this valley, what they need to do is get that front line blocking working. It hasn't been going at all in this set so far. That's going to be the key to trying and stay alive here.
Leaper, Cougars are able to curb his attack. Mosher in the back row, Gato, and no one picked it up. Again, CUC just struggling to make the routine plays. And because of it, Wabash, they now take an 18-7 lead.
It's a tough sequence there for the Cougars. You had a couple moments where the communication got a bit iffy, but they were able to stay alive, and finally the communication just bites them at the end of the rally.
Ball goes way out off the attack attempt, and CUC might be starting to see the writing on the wall. Wabash 6 points away from a 3-0 sweep, as here's Sessions. Sessions served too much, so CUC able to keep Wabash under the 20-point threshold for now. David Vales goes back to serve.
And this is really the big sequence here for CUC. If you can get a bit of a run here, maybe you can stay alive. That's a great serve right there from David Vales, and that's what you need. Now you get 2 consecutive points. You got to get a few points right here. You got to get a run going if you want a chance to get back into this. Otherwise, the ball goes back to Wabash with just 5 points to go to a win.
And Vales, he follows his service ace with a service error, and that's kind of the story of the game, Jonathan. It seems that whenever the Cougars, they get a break, they do something well, they are following that up with a mistake, an error of some kind, and that just kills any shot at momentum the team has, which when you're down by 11 points in a must-win third set, momentum is more key than anything. Bikes, he goes to Thang, sends it into the net.
Yeah, you said those errors. That has been such a rough spot for the Cougars tonight. 21 attacking errors, 11 service errors. That's what's really been keeping them from going on these runs, was from establishing that consistent attack out there on the court. That's what's really allowed Wabash to take control in this third set.
Here comes Stang, pushes it over. Did it tip a Cougar? It did. And Coach Manos wants the referees to talk about it, as I think he's a little disgruntled about which ref made that call. Either way, it's a 21-10 game. Wabash 4 away, the Cougars 15. Bikes. Serve is into the net and down.
So you get Wabash committing an error there. Haven't been too many of those from the Little Giants side in this third set so far. So it gives the Cougars a chance. Wabash, 4 points to go to a win. The Cougars, they've got a 10-point gap to bridge here. So it gives you some breath of fresh air. The question is it too little, too late? And, you know, you have a chance here to go on a bit of a run. And with every chance you lose from the Cougars, the more dire the circumstances become.
Two-touch roll call on Wabash, so CUC gets one back. Down 21-12. Going back to serve is Deontay Garcia. Garcia started the game as libero for CUC, has since changed into a regular jersey. And a hit there from Thang. tip some Cougar paws, and that makes it 22-12. Back to a 10-point lead for Wabash.
I mean, you look as we start to come into a very tough end of the game here for the Cougars. You came into this game talking about that hitting percentage, how important it is to play clean for the Cougars. And in this third set, it's really fallen apart. That hitting percentage actually in the negatives in this third set right now for CUC. And it's safe to say that is not where you want to be. In that set where it's critical, you play your best volleyball, the Cougars have just continued to slide backwards.
Yeah, and I think this should be a good learning moment for these young players for CUC. You know, you have two sets that are very, very close in sets 1 and 2, and then a third set where the wheels just kind of come off the wagon. And that, you know, that's something that every young player goes through. It's just for the Cougars, they're a team of mostly young players. So this should be a good learning moment for these guys of terms of, hey, things, you know, even when we're playing well in a set, things don't always go our way in terms of set 1 and 2, and sometimes things just completely don't go our way in terms of set 3. So CUC, despite them being 1 point away from losing this game, still a lot of lessons to take away. Meanwhile, Shad Wilson, his serve is right to David Vales. Mosher, he goes for Vales, staying, pops it up. Here comes Sessions. Gano is there. Mosher for Vales. Vales a floater. It's somehow still up. Great defense there from the Little Giants, and no one picks it up. And I think that's a fitting end to this game. CUC loses it on a 2-touch violation. A game of mistakes for CUC ends on a mistake. And they'll have to sit with this 3-0 loss to the Wabash Little Giants for the rest of the night as they lose set 3, 25-13. Just absolute domination from the Little Giants.
That is a really, really tough loss on the part of the Cougars right there, especially when you have your first 2 sets finished with gaps of 2 points and then 3 points. You're so close to taking a lead early on, but you just end up dropping and actually getting swept for the second game in a row. But, I mean, it is early on in the season, and this is far from a reason to doom for the Cougars. And there's still a few good things to come away from this game on, and a few good things to look forward to in the future for this Cougars.
Well, let's look at the kill leaders. Before we talk about the future a little bit more, Patrick Volk, the kill leader of the match with 11. David Vales, he had 9 for the most on CUC. The hitting leader was also Patrick Volk. He had at a 250 mark. Good night from Volk on the whole. In terms of the digs leader, plenty of players with 5. Thang, Bike, Sessions, Vales, Mosher, all of them 5 digs as CUC and Wabash playing some decent defense all the way around throughout this game. Assist leader goes to Will Bikes with 21 for the Cougars. It's Eli Mosher with 18. Blocking leader, we have 4 players with 3. Shad Wilson and Ricky Sessions for Wabash. Jackson Stella and Leon Gadzowski with 3 as well for the Cougars. The point leader still belongs to David Vales with his 13. But that'll do it from inside Geisman Gymnasium. Cougars, they fall to the Little Giants 25-13 in set 3 and fall in the match 3-0. But if you're wanting more CUC men's volleyball, don't worry, you don't have that long to wait. They'll be back at it tomorrow at 5 p.m. taking on Fontbonne University right here in Geisman Gymnasium. Coverage for the game can be found, as always, on our website, cucougars.com, and the live stream can be found on our YouTube page, CUC Sports. I want to say thanks to everybody making this Cougar Sports Network production possible. Down at the scorers table, we had Wyatt McLaughlin and Dave Dimling, Ashley Schroll helping out with stats. Eric Perry, our cameraman for the night. And up in the producing booth was Jessica Yang and Emma Borelli. We're under the direction of our Assistant Sports Information Director, Sydney Pulaski-Slaher, and our Sports Information Director, Caitlin McLeod, who's actually up in Mequon right now covering the Concordia Invitational Tournament. Once again, a big event for all the Concordias involved. But this is Peter Borkowski and Jonathan Shear signing off from inside Geisman Gymnasium in River Forest. We'll be back at it tomorrow, 5 p.m., when the Cougars take on Fontbonne University. But until then, this is Peter Borkowski signing off and wanting to say, as always, go Cougars.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Concordia University Chicago Cougars Athletics broadcast. We hope to see you on campus very soon. If you would like to learn more about what Concordia Chicago has to offer, go to cuchicago.edu.